My name is Celeste Rowan, and the night my mother told me I couldn't afford my own father's birthday dinner was the same night the staff greeted me as the owner of the hotel she was standing in. It was winter in coastal Rhode Island. Outside, the wind had quieted to a breathless cold, and inside, the lobby of the Mariner shimmered under Art Deco lighting and crisp, controlled elegance, exactly as I designed it. I had chosen not to arrive with the rest of my family that night. Instead, I entered solo, deliberately a few minutes late, just as the final guests were checking in. The moment my heels touched the marble floor, my younger sister, Kara, appeared from the hallway like she'd been waiting for a target. She looked me up and down, then offered a smile so tight it could cut glass. "You actually came," she said, her tone syrupy with disbelief. "Do you even have something appropriate for this place?" Before I could answer, our mother swept in, already frowning. "Celeste, don't make a scene," she hissed, taking in the room as if I were about to stain the furniture just by existing. "This place is upscale. You really think you can afford dinner here?" Then Marcus stepped forward, my head of operations, dressed in a black tailored suit, posture precise. "Mrs. Rowan," he said calmly, "perhaps you're unaware. You're currently speaking to the owner of this property." Everything stopped. My sister froze mid-smirk. My mother's mouth parted, no words forming. The marble beneath their feet may as well have cracked open, and I finally stepped into the building I had built, wearing the truth they never cared enough to ask for. I was born in a town where traditions clung to families like dust on old photo frames, quietly, stubbornly, and without question. In the Rowan household, the script was written long before I ever arrived. My mother, Helen, was a public school teacher who believed in appearances and order. My father, Douglas, ran a modest tax consultancy and valued practicality above all else. And then there was my younger sister, Kara, their golden child. 5 years younger, full of charm, and always ready to fit the mold. While Kara performed solos in the church choir, I was dissecting hotel brochures in the back of the pews, circling fonts and floor plans. While she collected trophies and posed for the town newspaper, I was taking on weekend shifts cleaning rooms at a bed and breakfast on the edge of town, fascinated by the rhythm of guest service and how a room could tell a story. None of that impressed my family. "You have too much imagination, Celeste," my mother would sigh, as if it were a disease. "You're going to end up disappointed." What she meant was that I wasn't Kara. Kara followed the script: straight A's, law school, internship in Manhattan, and by 25 she was already climbing the ladder at one of those sharp-edged firms where everyone's smile hid a contract clause. She was exactly the kind of success my parents understood: tangible, linear, respectable. Me? I took out loans, worked 3 jobs, and majored in hospitality at a state university they didn't bother to attend my graduation from. After college, I started as a night shift concierge at a hotel in Boston. They assumed it was temporary. A phase. "You're still working there?" my mother asked once, baffled. "You graduated years ago." I had already been promoted twice by then. The truth was, I never expected them to understand the path I'd chosen. But I had hoped, quietly, foolishly, that they'd at least be curious, that they'd ask about the hotels I managed, the loyalty programs I built, the guest experience models I refined. But the questions never came. I stopped volunteering information. Meanwhile, Kara moved from apartment to penthouse, never once worrying about down payments or student loans. My parents helped her with her first down payment, co-signed the second. She flew home every Thanksgiving with gifts and dramatic stories from the firm, and I, unless I offered to cook or clean, was often seated at the fold-out table near the laundry room. There's a photo of one holiday I can't unsee: my father carving the turkey, Kara at his side beaming with wine in hand, and me, off to the side, slightly out of frame, refilling the mashed potatoes. If there's a metaphor more obvious, I haven't found it. At 30, I opened my first hotel. I'd scraped together funding from a mix of silent investors and local development grants, negotiated a long-abandoned seaside property into my flagship, the Mariner. It took every ounce of stamina I had. I lived in one of the unfinished rooms for the first 6 months while overseeing renovations and personally hiring every member of staff. I pored over every design detail, from the stitching on the dining room chairs to the lighting in the elevator bays. When it opened, the press wrote, "A revival on the Rhode Island coast." I sent the article to my parents. My mother replied with a one-word text, "Nice." Kara didn't respond at all. It became easier to keep my life to myself. Over the next few years, I expanded. Slowly, quietly. No celebrity investors, no flashy launches. Just solid operations, repeat guests, and uncompromising service. By the time I turned 40, I owned 4 boutique hotels and lived in the penthouse of my first. To my family, I was still Celeste, the one who moved away and works in hotels. They didn't know about the media features, the executive conferences, or the foundation I funded for women in hospitality. They didn't ask, but I remembered everything. I remembered every time my mother called to tell me Kara had made partner. I remembered how, when I sent them a gift box curated from my hotel's spa line, my mother said it smelled too strong. I remembered how they thanked an imaginary cousin for the all-expense-paid anniversary trip to Hawaii I had arranged anonymously, because clearly it couldn't be from you, Celeste. I carried those memories like a ledger, not with anger, but with precision, a record of neglect disguised as politeness, dismissal softened by family smiles. So when my mother sent a group text about my father's 70th birthday, I didn't flinch. She was planning a dinner, she said. Somewhere respectable, maybe the Cove Grill, or that place by the water. What's it called? The Mariner? I was sipping coffee when I read it. Almost choked. She didn't even realize it was mine. I could have told her, but instead, I tapped a casual reply. The Mariner's private dining is beautiful, excellent reviews, would be a great choice. Her response came fast. Far too expensive, definitely not in your budget. I stared at the screen for a long time, letting that sentence settle where the others had. Another entry in the ledger. Then I opened another app and messaged Marcus. We've got a private event coming up, my family. They don't know. Let's plan something memorable. Marcus didn't even blink when I told him the situation. That was the thing about working with someone who used to debrief foreign diplomats for a living. Nothing rattled him. So they're planning your father's birthday at your own hotel, he repeated, leaning back in the leather chair across from my desk. And they have no idea? None, I said. They think I'm still barely getting by. He grinned. Do we let them keep thinking that? Until the exact right moment. We got to work. I instructed the staff to treat the Rowan party like any other premium guests. The reservation was made under Kara's name. She and my mother had decided to split the bill. They had no idea the private dining room, the Eastview Lounge, was typically reserved for VIPs and event partners. No clue that I'd approved an off-menu curated dinner with my executive chef or selected my father's favorite Pinot Noir from my private cellar. My mother called the front desk 3 times in the week leading up to the dinner. Each time she questioned the price, certain something must have been entered incorrectly. This rate seems generous, she'd say suspiciously. Our guest coordinator, Clara, followed instructions perfectly. Cheerful, professional, evasive. It's part of our seasonal package, ma'am, she said. You're just lucky with the timing. I covered the discount personally, of course. Quietly, strategically. No one needed to know. The guest list grew. A few golf friends, neighbors from the old street, Kara's new boyfriend, an associate partner who apparently loved the finer things. My mother asked if I could help with the tip, just to participate in some way. Of course, I said smoothly, even as the words sat like lead in my mouth. Marcus and I reviewed the timing carefully. I would arrive late, just past 7. I wanted them all settled in, surrounded by the place they assumed was too good for me. I'd enter through the main lobby, not the service elevator, and I'd be dressed to the nines, but not flashy, just enough to make them uncomfortable. I even had dessert timed. My father's favorite was a dark chocolate rum cake, a dessert he hadn't had in years. Our pastry chef crafted a custom version, and we made sure it would come out as the final course. My name would be on the pairing card. It wasn't revenge. Not exactly. It was instruction. A reminder that some lessons can't be taught with words alone. 3 days before the dinner, Kara called me directly. A rarity. So, Mom says you got us a discount at the Mariner? That's right. How? I have some industry connections. She snorted. Right. Well, I hope you have something decent to wear. It's not like the diner down the street. I'll manage. There was a pause. Then came the barb, soft but unmistakable. Just don't embarrass us, Celeste. I looked at the phone, blinking once. That was what she cared about, not the location, not our father, not family, just her image. It made what I was about to do all the more satisfying. The night before the dinner, Marcus knocked on my door. I was in my penthouse suite at the Mariner, reviewing staff notes one last time. All confirmed, he said. Security cameras ready. Clara's briefed. Kitchen's timed down to the minute. And the wine? Decanted 3 hours in advance. Your father's label. I nodded. Perfect. We didn't toast, or laugh, or plan anything extravagant. This wasn't theater. It was precision. Years of being overlooked, compacted into one quiet, controlled evening. That night, I barely slept. Not out of nerves, out of clarity. For the first time in my adult life, I wouldn't be the outsider at a family event. I'd be the constant they couldn't ignore. Not by yelling, not by proving, simply by being exactly who I already was. And letting the room catch up. Snow fell just lightly enough to make the world outside look curated, like a set piece someone had designed to match the elegance of the evening. The Mariner's brass fixtures glowed beneath the chandeliers, and from my office, I watched on the security feed as my family entered. Kara arrived first, draped in winter white, her boyfriend trailing behind, checking his reflection in every polished surface. My mother followed moments later, pausing in the lobby to adjust a floral arrangement like she owned the place. My father, sweet, distracted, quiet, stood back, hands in his coat pockets, already looking overwhelmed. They had no idea I was upstairs, watching. When the host led them toward the Eastview Lounge, I signaled Marcus. Time to move. I exited through the private elevator and circled around to the front, entering through the grand doors like any guest. Heads turned, just briefly. I wore a simple black dress, heels that didn't announce themselves, and a coat lined with cashmere. I walked in alone, and that was when Kara saw me. She stepped forward immediately, her smile taut and gleaming. You actually showed up, she said, tone tight. Her eyes flicked down my dress, her mouth twitching. Well, at least you look like you belong. Did you borrow that? No, I replied, brushing past her. But she wasn't done. Just so you know, the dinner is already covered. We've got it. You don't have to. Do anything. The implication landed. I wasn't expected to contribute. Not really welcome to either. Then my mother appeared. Celeste! She said my name like it tasted sour. Let's not make a scene. This place is expensive. We don't need surprises tonight. Understood? That was when Marcus approached, perfectly timed. Good evening, Mrs. Rowan, he said evenly. I believe there's been a misunderstanding. My mother frowned. And who are you? I'm Marcus Hale, head of operations here. She blinked. Oh, we didn't order any security. I'm not here for security, he said smoothly. I'm here to escort Miss Rowan to her property. Kara's head jerked. Her what? This hotel, Marcus said, not blinking. Miss Rowan owns it. The silence wasn't slow. It dropped like a pane of glass shattering in the middle of the lobby. My mother went pale. Kara's mouth parted, then closed. My father turned from down the hallway, just in time to catch the moment. That's ridiculous, my mother finally said. But it wasn't. The staff at the front desk had stopped to watch. The concierge offered me a quiet nod. The maitre d' emerged from the restaurant and greeted me with a warm, "Welcome back, Miss Rowan." I didn't gloat. I didn't raise my voice. I just met my mother's eyes and said quietly, "I live here. I built this." Then I turned to lead the way. Inside the Eastview Lounge, everything was exactly as I designed it. The menu cards bore my personal crest. The wine, my father's favorite, was already being poured. Kara followed, stunned. My mother walked in behind her, silent for once, and when my father finally reached me, he looked between the staff, the room, and me. "You chose the wine." "I did." He blinked, then smiled. "You remembered." It was the first thing he'd said to me all evening that felt like it was meant just for me. The dinner continued like a dream none of them had rehearsed. Kara barely touched her food. My mother smiled too hard and too often, as if the room might forget what had just unfolded. My father, to his credit, adjusted faster. He leaned into the moment, asking questions between courses, listening as if meeting me for the first time. When dessert arrived, dark chocolate rum cake his favorite, he looked at the plate, then at me, and said softly, "You really thought of everything." "I always have," I replied. Later that night, I returned to my office, removed my heels, and poured a glass of the same wine we'd served. Marcus joined me, loosening his tie, the corners of his mouth still turned upward. "Well," he said, "they didn't see that coming." "No," I said, swirling the wine. "They didn't." The next morning, my phone lit up with calls I didn't answer. First was my mother, then Kara, then again, my mother. I let them go to voicemail. I needed time to think, to prepare, not to react. By noon, I had a plan. That afternoon, I met my father alone. We sat in a quiet corner of the hotel's lounge. He wore the same gray sweater he'd worn every Thanksgiving since I was 18. It made him look softer, less like the man who'd always let my mother speak first. He was the first to talk. "I owe you an apology, Celeste. Not just for last night, for years." I said nothing. Let him sit with the weight of his own words. "When you used to call about your work," he continued, "I didn't mean to brush it off. I just didn't know what to say. You were doing something none of us understood." I looked at him carefully. "That's not why you brushed it off. You didn't want to see it. It was easier to assume I was failing." He flinched, but didn't deny it. "You supported Kara through law school. You flew out for her internships. You helped with her down payments. I was on my own." "I know," he said, voice low, "and I was wrong." It wasn't dramatic, but it was real. And after so many years of silence, that mattered more than any sudden declaration. "I've decided to change how I interact with this family," I told him. "No more anonymous help. No more letting people assume I'm the weak one." He nodded slowly. "That sounds right. I'll still give when I want to, but not quietly, not invisibly. I'm not hiding anymore." When he left, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt something quieter, cleaner, like an old ledger had been balanced. That night, I met with Marcus and my attorney to begin formalizing the boundaries. From now on, if my family wanted access, personal or professional, they'd meet the terms I'd set: respect, transparency, no exceptions. 2 days after the dinner, my mother showed up at the Mariner without warning. No call, no courtesy, just the same old entitlement wrapped in polite outrage. She approached the front desk expecting instant access, and instead was asked by Clara, "Would you like to leave a message or schedule a meeting?" I watched from my office as her expression shifted from confidence to disbelief. "I'm her mother," she said. Clara didn't waver. "We apply the same policy to all guests." My mother left fuming and called immediately. "Celeste, I just came by and was turned away like I was nobody." "You weren't turned away," I said. "You were treated with the same boundaries I give everyone else." "I'm your mother. And I'm running a business," I replied, calm and firm. "This is who I am now. I don't owe anyone unfiltered access." There was a pause, then something unusual from her. Hesitation. "We should talk. All of us. As a family." "I'm open to that," I said, but only with a therapist present, on neutral ground. She didn't like it, but she agreed. That was the shift. Not a reconciliation, not a full reckoning. Just the quiet, unmistakable recognition that I was no longer the girl they could dismiss. That night, Marcus joined me on the rooftop lounge. We watched the harbor lights flicker against the water. "So," he said, raising his glass, "was this about proving them wrong?" I shook my head. Not anymore. It's about showing up fully and letting the rest fall where it may. He nodded. Feels different now, doesn't it? Yes, I said, setting my glass down. This isn't about revenge. It's about finally being the person I've always been, without apologizing for it.